Well, hello, hello, hello. It's Monday night again, and I want to welcome you to Live Live, a place where we meet up to receive motivational, inspirational, and activational strategies for those challenging and changing life moments. I am your host, Keela Bryson. Well, I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you didn't spend too much money during this past tax-free weekend, but at the same time, I do hope you got all the things that you needed to get your kiddos ready for school. All right, I am not going to waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and get started and dive right into tonight's topic. Tonight, as a result of talking with so many folks over this past weekend, I was able to come to the conclusion that, there are a lot of people going through some challenging times right now. And most of the times when we're going through our own personal challenge, we think that we tend to believe that we're the only one that's going through whatever it is that we're dealing with, whatever the problem is. In our eyes, it looks like everyone around us is doing so much better than we are. But in actuality, you'd be surprised how many folks are walking around dealing with various challenges, but they don't give off an indication that they are. They've learned to just mask the whole situation, even though they're hurting inside. This past weekend, I listened to a number of individuals who just was sharing what it was that they were going through and the hard time that they were experiencing. And my advice to them was that, you're not by yourself. There are a lot of people at this moment dealing with something. Everybody is dealing with some personal issue, and they're trying to stay strong in spite of the pressure, in spite of the load that they're carrying. And so tonight's topic is in response to all of that. And I'm doing this as a way to encourage people who are going through whatever it is that they're going through that's a trying moment for them. So tonight, my topic is dealing with how to manage personal life crises. Many of you know that I published my first book this year, and it deals with how to manage personal life crises. The book came about as a result of my own personal life crisis that I've endured and overcome. And as a result, I felt led to put some of those wisdoms in a book to help other folks through their crises. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. Because a lot of times, if you don't know how to manage a crisis, a personal crisis, it will get the best of you, and you'll end up down a path that you never thought that you would go down. There's so much turmoil, and folks are trying to figure out how to cope with whatever it is they're going through. A lot of folks are trying to deal with their personal crises through drugs and alcohol. A lot of people are having to take anxiety medications, antidepressants. Whatever it is, they feel that is helping them to deal with what the problem that's so overwhelming. In our secular corporate arena, they have crisis management procedures, crisis management manuals in place within these various organizations to help be a resource for them in the event that they should encounter some sort of crisis within their corporations. And these corporations spend a lot of money out here to make sure that they have a plan in place to manage a crisis if their company was to be sued for a product that failed. They have a crisis management plan in place for that. If the CEO is found to have done something unethical, illegal, or something that's criminal, each corporation has a crisis management plan of how they're going to manage a situation like that with regard to the media, with regard to their consumers. But when you think about our own individual lives, our personal lives, we, in most cases, don't have a crisis management plan. And as a result, I'm finding that a lot of folks are not succeeding in overcoming their personal crises because they don't have a plan in place. And we all have to have some sort of plan. It may not be written down per se, but we need to have some sort of financial fundamental steps in place that we follow in the event of whatever crisis we find ourselves encountering. Because the truth is, at some point or another, we all are going to encounter a personal crisis. I can guarantee you that. There's no way around it. Some of us experience it more frequently than others, and some of us experience these crises at an intense level that others may not experience. But whether you're experiencing one crisis or 10 at one time, you have to have some sort of strategy in place of how you're going to deal with the crisis so that you don't become one of these folks who end up losing their minds, snapping, becoming a drug addict, or you end up in prison or on medication that end up creating another problem in your body because you're taking an antidepressant or an anxiety medication. And so you end up having another health problem trying to solve another health problem. And I just believe that if we get a plan in place, like most corporations, then we will be strengthened, we'll be able to come out successfully, and we will be able to manage the crisis. So as I said, tonight's topic is how to manage a personal life crisis. What does it mean to manage? If we're going to manage a crisis, what I'm saying to you is that we need to learn how to handle a personal crisis, how to properly handle a personal crisis, how to guide and regulate and engineer ourselves through that personal crisis. And when I say manage, I mean we need to be able to take charge of the situation or take care of the situation. To manage a personal crisis, it means to bring about or succeed in accomplishing something despite difficulty or hardship. Most times, if we're not careful when we're in a personal crisis, we don't come out successfully because the difficulty is so bad until it overwhelms us simply because we do not have a plan in place, a strategy in place. Anytime you're going to manage something effectively, you've got to have steps that lead toward the success of whatever it is that you're managing. Now, when we're managing our personal crises, we don't want to be one of those folks that's under managing it or over managing it, because if you are doing too little of something, that's not good, and if you're overdoing something, that's not good either. We want to be able to balance it in a way where we're not extreme or under extreme in another area. So the key word there is manage, because a crisis can be managed. Otherwise, why would all these corporations out here spend thousands and thousands of dollars putting in place a crisis management plan? So we can do the same thing for our life, but we have to get a plan in place, and that's the purpose of this call. That's the purpose of the book that I've written, to help people establish the steps, the fundamental steps of overcoming a crisis. And you'd be surprised. It's just simple things that we have to remember when we're in the midst of a crisis. And if we're mindful of those things, and if we execute those steps, then you're going to come out. And I'm a witness you will. So my next point, what is a crisis? A crisis is a turning point. It's a condition of instability. And as I told you over the weekend, listening to various folks while I was out and about, a lot of folks are experiencing instability in their finances, on their jobs. They're experiencing instability in their health, instability in relationships and families, marriages, and relationships are in a state of chaos, on the verge of crashing. A crisis is a period of danger. We see a period of crisis going on even in our economy. We see it in politics. everywhere you look just about, you see crisis. We see crises happen over in the Middle East with Gaza and the different regions over in the Middle East. Crises. A crisis is a dramatic, emotional, or circumstantial upheaval in a person's life. And if you've ever gone through a crisis before, you can attest that it is dramatic and it is emotional. And it's sudden, it's unexpected usually. And that's what makes it so bad. That's what makes it such a crisis, because it's unexpected, it's dramatic, and it's overwhelming. So a crisis is a turning point. And believe it or not, at first it may seem like the crisis is going to be bad, it's just going to take you out. But if you follow the steps, it's going to be a good turning point for you. Now, the various crises that I've gone through, I can attest that in each of these major crises that I've experienced in my past, each of them was a turning point, a positive turning point for me, because in the end, I was in a different place in my mentality, in my belief, and just overall, I had a different mindset, which caused me to advance and propel to another level. But it wouldn't have happened had the crisis not occurred. So it's a good turning point at the end, but the problem is most of us cannot endure until the end successfully to reap the benefits of this positive turning point. And so the purpose of this call is to help us to get to the point where we experience the positive of the turning point of a crisis. All crisis is not bad, because a lot of times crisis is a way of purifying us, promoting us, and advancing us to a higher level than where we currently reside. And that level that we currently reside in a lot of times is limited, or we've outgrown that level, or is no longer serving to our purpose. And as a result, crisis will come via chaos and problems to prune us, so to speak, to purify us, to develop us further, and to cause us to grow mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and what have you. So don't look at crisis as a bad thing. Welcome it and embrace it, because if you don't, the more you fight it, the more difficult it is to make it through your crisis. Embrace it, because something good is trying to work its way to you and through you. It's all about having the right perspective. If you can have the right perspective, you're going to be all right. Now, what type of crises are there? In my book, I identified 9 of them. And, of course, I'm sure you probably could come up with some more that I don't list. But at any rate, most individuals that I have come in contact with, or that I've experienced, or folks that I've observed over the past years, these are the top crises that most folks find themselves in. And over the weekend, I was able to put different people that I listened to or overheard or watched, I could put them in these various categories. The first one that most folks can find themselves in is a character crisis. A character crisis is basically a crisis where your character is under attack. You're being accused of something that's untrue, or it's true, but someone put a negative spin on it. Someone is trying to sabotage your character, saying that maybe you're not honest, saying that you defrauded, or maybe you're not the good guy that people claim you are, or the goody two-shoe that you claim to be. A character crisis is when someone tries to sabotage you and expose you and try to make everyone believe that you're not a person of integrity, a person of character, a person of honesty. And usually when folks go through the character crises, it can be overwhelming, especially when it plays out in the public. Because believe it or not, most people tend to believe bad news quicker than they do good news. Most people tend to believe a negative report quicker than they will a positive and a true report. And I have learned that our society has been lied to so much until few of us even recognize the truth when we hear it. And that's in every major institution, every major pillar of our society, most people believe a lie. Most people have been brainwashed to believe a certain mindset, and when they hear the truth, and this is even down, you can see people even in certain areas that you'd be surprised. You would think, man, they should be able to discern that this is a lie. But even some of the folks that are supposed to be the expert in discerning the truth can't hardly tell the truth when they hear it because they've been brainwashed to believe a certain way. The next type of crisis is a property crisis, and this is one where you begin to lose property that you've earned and worked hard for. This could be the loss of a home through a foreclosure, the loss of a home as a result of a fire, the loss of a home as a result of a tornado or some type of act of God, as they call it, some storm, maybe flooding. And as a result of these type of things, you end up losing your home. And a lot of people have experienced this ever since about 2007, 2008. This was around the start of the housing bubble. And a lot of people have lost property, and as a result, it was overwhelming to them. They wasn't able to bounce back from it. A lot of people are still suffering from this. The next type of crisis is the crisis with your children. A lot of people are going through this. Children are out here. Some of them have been taught, but still choose to be rebellious and not follow the way in which their parents have taught them. Then there's another group of children, they haven't been taught, and so they're just doing what they know to do to survive. A crisis with your children is when you're trying to keep your child on the right path, but yet they're being tempted and lured by all these negative influences. You know, they're trying to do all these things to fit in, tattoos, the way they dress, the way they wear their hair, the music that they listen to, the people that they hang out with. You know, I want to be on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I'm posting inappropriate pictures. I'm out here participating in these dangerous challenges that I'm seeing a lot on Facebook and so. And as a parent, you're trying to teach a child that you don't have to do all this stuff, but a lot of times these children believe that they have to do it in order to be accepted, to be popular, or to fit in with the so-called cool kids. And a lot of parents experience crises when their children go off to college, when their children start dating, and it creates a whole nother level of turmoil and stress in the home because these various areas such as college and dating introduce your child to a whole different level of experiences. And as a result, your child, you know, they want to fit in, so they end up doing a lot of these things that they know that their parent would disapprove of. And some kids end up doing it. They end up putting themselves in danger. They end up altering their life for the rest of their lives. Because, you know, some things that we do today will affect us the rest of our life. Just based upon one simple decision that we made that was not a good decision. And anytime a parent is going through with their child, that is a crisis, and it can be overwhelming and very stressful. The next type of crisis is crisis in your health. We see a lot of people going through a crisis in their health through various diseases. Just over the news the past weekend, you know, there's a situation where a couple of folks were over in Africa serving, and they end up contracting the Ebola virus. And so now they're having to bring them back to the United States to try to treat these people. That's a crisis because Ebola, that is a serious situation to be in, a serious virus to have contracted. Some people are going through from cancer or diabetes, amputations, heart disease, whatever it is. If you're not healthy, then you don't have anything because you got to be healthy to live in this world, to take care of your daily needs. And so having a health crisis is not a good place to be in. The next type of crisis is a relationship crisis. A lot of people going through in their relationships, their marriage. A lot of people are divorcing. A lot of people are breaking up. A lot of people are struggling in family relationships. And as a result, this can be a crisis because you know why? You love that person. Love is involved. And when love is involved, it's a crisis. And some of these relationships have gotten so out of control until they turn into fatal attractions, murder, family member murdering another family member, all because of something that the other person did that upset the other person, or maybe there was an affair, or maybe, a family member became fed up with being abused by other family members or what have you. People are going through in their relationship. This can be a crisis. When your emotions are involved in these relationships, emotions will make you do some strange things. The next type of crisis is a financial crisis, your money. You don't have money. And we know in order to make it in this world, we have to have some money. And if you don't have a job because the economy is bad and the job sector is still struggling, and you can't get any more unemployment benefits, you can't find a job, what are you going to do? This is a crisis because how can you pay for your mortgage, your rent, your groceries, your utilities? This is a crisis because it takes money to live in this world. And when your finances are in shambles, that is a crisis. The next type of crisis is your reputation. A lot of times folks go through things with their reputation being on the line. Whenever your reputation is in question, a lot of times folks don't want to have anything to do with you. They want to put you to the side. A lot of times if you find out who your friends really are when they think that you've done something wrong and that, you're creating a bad image, and so they don't want to be associated with you. And then if you've gone through any financial crises, not having a job, then your reputation will be on the line because now you're considered a bad credit risk. And so now you can't get any credit. Or if you have to file bankruptcy, foreclosure, what have you, well, your reputation is on the line because now society is saying, well, we can't loan you any money. Well, we can't give you a job because your credit is bad. Well, we can't give you a good discount on your auto insurance because your reputation is horrible based upon your credit score. And so reputation, and in this society, they look at your credit score to determine what your reputation is instead of really getting to know you. The next type of crisis is when a destiny or a purpose crisis. This is when you have a great call on your life, a great assignment on your life to fulfill in the universe, in the earth realm, and as a result, there's an opposing force that comes against you that tries to stop you, hinder you, or prevent you from carrying out your purpose or your destiny because the impact will be so great and so beneficial to so many until it's like this person has always been opposed by this force that prevents them and tries to halt them. You see people going through so much, but yet they can be so gifted, so talented. And anything that's gifted and good and talented, there's always an opposing force that comes against anything that's trying to do good or to promote good or to release good in the atmosphere. Anytime you're trying to fulfill your purpose or your destiny, you can expect a crisis in that. You're going to be tried in the fire. Every destiny, every purpose, whether it's opening a new business, whether it's writing a book, or whether it's becoming a professional athlete, whatever that your destiny or your purpose is, you're going to go through a phase of crises because there's a price that has to be paid in order to fulfill that call or that purpose or that destiny. And until the price has been paid, you will not fulfill it. Now, each purpose and destiny can have a certain dollar price on it, so to speak, whereas this over here, this particular call may not call for this particular type of suffering or crisis, whereas this one over here will call for an abundance of crises and suffering. But whatever your call is, whatever your purpose, fight through it because it's an indication, the crisis is an indication that there is greatness on your life, that you are super gifted, and that the impact is going to be in an abundance. It's going to be make an impact and help many, 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 many people. But you've got to stand tall, stand strong, and pay the price to bear it and to bring it forth. The final type of crisis is the death crisis. And we all know what death is. We all prefer not to experience it. But at some point, most of us, we all are going to experience it, whether it's our own or a family member or a friend. We're going to experience it at one point or another. And when you go through this death crisis, it can be overwhelming. I've seen people grieve, and look like it takes forever for them to get over the loss of a loved one, a friend, or what have you. But I'm here to tell you that even in that, God will begin to heal you and give you strength, and you can overcome it. So my last point, how do we manage these personal life crises? In my book, I list 12 of them. And I'm only going to list them. I may go into some of them a little bit, but I invite you to purchase the book on Amazon.com, or you can go to my website directly and purchase it at KeelerBryson.com, where you can get more detail into these next 12 steps on how to make it through a crisis. The first thing that you need to do, and most of these steps seem simple, but when you're in a crisis, I have found that they are some of the hardest things for people to do. A crisis has a way of just taking you all out of balance, and you can't hardly think sometimes, and you forget the simple things. And it's those simple things that tend to hinder us, prevent us, and cause us to be stalled in a crisis longer than we should. The first step, decide you're not going to be defeated. In other words, you've got to declare war on your crisis, that it's not going to defeat you. A lot of times when we go through crisis, we never make up our mind that I'm not going to let this defeat me. If you would just decide, make a decision that I'm not going to let this beat me. The next step, you must build yourself up. You got to get into a war zone mentality or a cold red mentality. A lot of times when we go through crisis, we don't change our habits, our routine, or anything. We don't step aside and meditate and think and come up with a strategy and what we're going to do. We tend to just stand there and let the problem happen. But you got to build yourself up. And in my book, I go into detail on what I mean by that. The third step, be patient. One thing I've learned about the enemy, and one thing I've noticed about terrorists, is that they are patient. They will wait and wait and wait and wait, and they won't get in a hurry, and they wait and wait because they want the plan to be perfected. They want the plan to be successful. And so if we're going to come through our crisis and manage it effectively, we've got to be patient. We've got to go through the process so that whatever needs to be birthed in us is birthed effectively. The first step. The fourth step is that we've got to keep living our life. A lot of times when folks go through crises, they stop living. They won't comb their hair. They won't take a bath. They won't put on some fresh clothes. They won't dress up, put their makeup on. They just throwing on anything. They won't go to work. They won't go to class. They won't go out over their family members. They just stop living. They just go up in a room, close the windows and the shades, and turn the light off and get in the bed. Don't stop living just because you're in a crisis. That's when you need to get your sharpest, get your hair, your nails, whatever, put on your baddest suit and your baddest shoes, because it's going to pass. The crisis is going to pass. The fifth step, don't make everyone else suffer. This is a big one because a lot of times when folks are going through a crisis, I have noticed that they tend to take it out on others. Now, that person didn't have anything to do with your crisis, so why should you make them suffer? Don't do that. Be mindful of that. Your attitude will determine how quickly you come out. The sixth step, watch out for mind tricks. And then most of you that if you've ever been through a crisis, you know what I'm talking about. You will have all kinds of thoughts come to your mind. Suicide, people picking on you, and I'm not going to come out of this. Don't fall for those tricks. Okay? Watch out for that. The seventh step, remember there's an end date to your crisis. We know that in the natural, when it rains and it storms, it doesn't last forever. There is a cutoff point. There is an ending time for the storm. And so it is with our crisis. Number 8, we must remember past victories. Then you come out before that last crisis you were in that was so heavy, so extreme, and you thought you would not come out. Now, where are you today? You're out of it. And if you really look at the situation, I bet you're better off than you were. Remember past victories. Number 9, remember promotion is on the other side of the crisis. A lot of times we are blinded by this fact. We never realize or we forget that once we come through the crisis, there's a blessing on the other side. But we first have to go through the crisis. We will experience some sort of promotion, but we must successfully come out first. Number 10, realize that the crisis is sent to develop us for future destiny purposes. I guarantee you, whatever crisis you're finding yourself in, once you come out, you'll be able to help somebody else come out. You'll be able to coach them through it. You'll be able to talk them through it, walk them through it. But if you never go through anything, how can you help somebody else? If you never go through anything, how can you be sensitive and understanding to someone who's going through their crisis? And when you come through a crisis, now you're experienced, and you can use that experience for your future destiny purposes. Number 11, don't yield to temptation. A lot of times we're in crises, we're tempted. If you're in a financial crisis, you'll be tempted to go do something illegal to get money. Okay, it's things like that that we have to be careful of to not be tempted to do, because the ideal and the thought will be presented to you. Shoot it down. Don't fall for it, because you know what? You don't have time for that. And the last and final step number 12, is to remember that the silence is normal. Now, this is a big one. A lot of times when we're in crises and we're praying or we're waiting and seeking some sort of answer, and it seems like you go that last phase of the crisis, it just seems like God's not answering. God's not hearing me. I'm not seeing any movement. I don't even see a sign that something good is about to happen. You know what? That's an indication that something is happening. God is moving on your behalf. You're getting ready to come out. All the arrangements are being made. And as a result, there's nothing new to say to you, because your prayer was heard and the arrangements are being made. So when that last step, when you find that everything is silent, no letter in the mail, no email, no phone call, no text, whatever, know that you are en route. You are on your way. You are about to cross over and out of that crisis once you see that there is some silence. And I tell you, it can be one of the most agonizing times. But if you don't remember anything else I said, remember that once it gets silent, you need to be packing your bags and start rejoicing, because you're getting ready to come out in a great way. And it is indication that God is moving on your behalf. He's making the arrangements, and he's not going to say anything to you until the arrangements have been made. And then that's when you're going to hear some noise and some talking and some people calling and writing and everything else. All right, my friend, that's my time for this week. This has been a Teachable Life Moment with Keeler Bryson, where it is absolutely imperative that you live live. If you would like to connect with me, you may do so on Facebook at Keeler Bryson, Teachable Life Moments, LLC. I'm on Twitter at Keeler Savant, SAVANT, or you can visit my website at KeelerBryson.com. If you have comments or feedback, or if you want to receive personal coaching, you can email me at Keeler@KeelerBryson.com. All right, my friend, have a great week. I hope that tonight's topic helped you, and I want to encourage you that you can come through your crisis. Have a great week.